Hello everybody and welcome to Amphlett Reviews, back with another Japanese deep dive for 2025. Happy New Year guys, hope you had a great Christmas. Welcome back to the channel. I'm very excited, as mentioned in my Christmas video. Basically I've got a few things I want to kind of tackle in terms of some of the collection and some directors that I want to check out, and thank you guys for joining me with another video on Kinji Fukasaku. And I figured, because there's quite a few of his movies getting new releases, especially within this year now, 2 specifically in February, and it's a really appropriate timing and a really good opportunity for myself as a first-time viewer to kind of explore his filmography all the way to his early beginnings, leading to some more of his kind of infamous movies with the Battle Royale collection. There's so many great movies of this director and such odd directions with his kind of American collaborations as well. It's a very interesting kind of, a mixture of different genres and different ideas, and he doesn't just stick to Yakuza movies, he also just venture out to do comedies and B movies and all sorts of kind of interesting kind of projects which I've yet to see. And hopefully through this kind of journey I can get through more of his films, have a bigger understanding of this director, and to see which films I like, which films I don't. And I've already reviewed a couple of his films already on the channel, which I will put the playlist and the link below if you want to check out and tag along me on this journey with Kinji Fukasaku. And I decided for this journey to go to his very early beginnings. Being in fact a lot of his films now are getting like easier access in terms of Blu-ray, and there's some on DVD still and some on digital. I figured let's start from the beginning, very similar to what I've done with a few other kind of Hong Kong directors on the channel, and to see which ones I can find, which ones I've access to. Some of his most earliest films, like The Drifting Detective, are not available on kind of home media release. Smaller movies that I've yet to kind of see the light of day in terms of the kind of mass kind of audience, and hopefully one day through these kind of films getting more and more popular audience. Arrow, Film Emotion, Vinegar Syndrome. There's so many distributions that are coming in now and basically wanting a slice of this direct. And I figured I would start to one of his most earliest access films. That's one that's got a recent release, both from Vinegar Syndrome and Eureka, which is Wolves, Pig and Men. I've got the Vinegar Syndrome edition, which features the Violent Panic Big Crash, which I have not seen. Almost 10-year difference in terms of release, both kind of robbery-based movies. I'll show you the edition here. There you go. This is a region A locked one, so if you are considering getting this one, do have a multi-region player. You get a booklet there, you get both discs, of course. And of course, as mentioned, the Wolf, Pigs and Men is available on the Eureka edition in the UK, but the other film is not available. And I got this for a really good steal on eBay, basically for the same price as it would be for just that one film. So definitely worth checking out if you got a multi-region player, and if you're curious about the Big Crash as well, which I've heard very good things. So yeah, Wolves, Pig and Men, released in 1964, starring Ken Tuakawa, if I'm saying it correctly, which is the main star, main protagonist character, which is on the main poster here. Really big name in kind of Japanese cinema that was making a lot of big movies, and his face was all over a lot of the main contemporary kind of Japanese films during that time, during the mid-60s. And it's interesting, on the edition talks about the kind of the making of the film and the production, and how the film's put together, and the fact that he was doing 2 films at the same time, both polar opposites in terms of his characterization. One set more of a period piece, one is more of a modern sort of ish kind of film during the kind of 50s, being much more of a violent, crueler character, when the other one, he was much more of a honest, kind of savior hero type character, which is interesting to kind of see that kind of dual performance, which I think is quite fascinating. On the extra talks about, if you watch both of those films together, you can see a bit of a kind of an interesting kind of back and forth in terms of his character, which I think is quite fascinating. Of course, this is directed by Kinji Fukasaku. This is one of his earliest films I've access to. In fact, all films before this and some of the films in between can get lost in translation. I don't think a lot of them do have good releases as of the current moment anyway. And this one I was very curious about, just to kind of see if I can recognize his signature style within his very early portion of his career, before he did the major big kind of Yakuza movies, before the kind of the demand of more kind of aggressive street guerrilla style kind of filmmaking, and before he became the infamous king of Yakuza based kind of movies, tapping into that kind of new wave of kind of Japanese kind of style films. Studios were still wanting very much the kind of the same type of film as discussed in previous reviews of other movies on the channel, very much the hero type, the kind of the savior character, someone who's the reluctant hero potentially, but saves the day. Something that's been explored quite a few times now within Japanese cinema, and this one is not that at all. I'm very, very surprised. It does have some Yakuza kind of elements to it, but it is not about that. You've got Japanese economy being really bad at that time, being post-World War II as mentioned. You've got the slum areas, you've got kind of what's referred to being as kind of like basically living with pigs, essentially, and you've got the Yakuza kind of gangster characters, and you've got a storyline which basically revolves around the community of a kind of slum kind of location, which is mainly what the film is set within this kind of like little barn area. And you've got three different perspectives on this kind of viewpoint in terms of their own kind of situation, their own circumstances, and all three characters are seeking to kind of get out of the slums, get out of this kind of location. The film accurate title obviously being Wolves, Pig and Men, which is representation of the three main characters. You've got three brothers, you've got the oldest, the middle and the youngest, all from basically the slums, the kind of the poor end of the kind of outside of Tokyo. And basically this is post-World War II, something that's been a talking point within a lot of Japanese films. One of the surprising things about the film, it has this very kind of youthful, kind of vibrant kind of energy about it, in terms of how the younger kind of generation basically just saying, you don't know us, you don't care, we want to get out, we want to be free, we want to do this, we want to do that. Very much leading into that kind of 60s kind of style in terms of being free spirit and being post-World War, and people want to express themselves, people want to be kind of have freedom and say what they want, do what they want, and not be kind of shackled to the sins of the past between other family members, or just the country's own kind of mistakes or faults or kind of successes, and just wants to be their own individual and not be put in a situation where they can't control, or not have the opportunity to kind of get out of it, unless you do go to crime, unless you do the kind of the horrible, unspeakable things which his two brothers have gone into, in terms of being a thief, in terms of being a Yakuza member, gangster, and this character just basically wants out. And I like that kind of energy he has between his kind of friends, and I like that kind of little dance kind of number and that kind of song they sing in that kind of barn, which I think is quite interesting. They're very much making the best of the situation they're in. And now his mother has passed, in terms of all their mother basically has passed. He feels that there's an opportunity now to get out and do something. And unfortunately for him, his older brother basically comes out of a proposition with his partner in crime, essentially, as well, saying, we can rip off basically Yakuza gang member, their drugs, their money, we'll give you a cut of the profit, and are you in, are you out, kind of thing. This is an opportunity for him, opportunity for his older younger brother, but at the same time there is some double crosses and betrayals that do fall in line with it. Even pre-done that offer, there's already a sense of kind of like his own agenda in place, his own kind of self-preservation in terms of what he wants to do, what he wants to get out of the situation. And I like the fact that his intentions is very clear from the film's perspective straight away. He's just got to prison, he wants to do one big score, he wants to run away with a woman, and he doesn't even care about putting his own brother in a really bad situation, essentially. He's willing to use his partner in crime, his brother, anyone who gets in his way, essentially, to kind of get what he wants. Very much a piece of shit thief character, very much no honor among thieves, as the saying goes. You've got the middle brother, which is Rentama Kuni, which is also the secondary villain character on the edition, which is the bottom brother right there. So the two main brothers, basically he is the kind of affiliated with the Yakuza gang, someone who's kind of left the slums a long time ago, someone who has no association with the slums, or his younger brother, or his older brother, which is recently got out of jail. Basically he's put in a very precarious situation where basically if he doesn't stop his older brother and basically get him out of town, make sure he doesn't get into any kind of trouble, basically his responsibility is to get his older brother out of town, pay him off, do what he needs to take, and his position in that kind of organization, that clan, it's solely reliant on what he does, essentially, because he's bad news. He started a little trouble many years ago, and that's why he got into jail. Unfortunately, all three of these characters are put in a very precarious situation, down to their own kind of making. They're all at fault in some way, shape or form in terms of the situation that does unfold through a series of kind of really intense kind of torture sequences and violent kind of acts that do happen. I'm not going to say too much, but it definitely gets very intense, gets very heated, and it definitely drags out the situation even longer than it needs to be, essentially. A good portion of the middle film focuses on that bond situation and the slum community, and it just kind of gets out of hand, essentially. I think the film itself, is very impressive. I think it's technically extremely well put together and crafted. I think the opening introduction, is really stylized and really a great sense of kind of like creative kind of tone. I like the fact they kind of give this kind of very brief narrative of what's happened leading up to the kind of the brothers' release from prison. And the music, how it's kind of presented in terms of the title cards and how they kind of portray information, I think is quite impressive. I think the shots and how they want to portray violence, I think is quite impressive for a 60s film as well. It's quite violent. I imagine in color this would be just as violent, probably be an 18, if it's not an 18 already in the UK. On a technical level, in terms of music, editing, cinematography, all on point, very much Kinji Fukasaku's style, which is one of the things I was very curious about by checking out one of his very first films, his earliest film that I can get access to see if that style would translate through his kind of early beginnings all the way up to his kind of later films. And I'm happy to say that it definitely does. You know, definitely you can tell this is his film, the way he made it, the way he kind of put those shots together, the way he used lighting, expressions on characters' faces. There's definitely a good sense of direction. Like, it's a bit rinse and repeat in places. It definitely kind of relays the same information over and over again in terms of some of the more torture scenes, in terms of fingers getting crushed and some of the assault scenes, and it's the characters kind of basically saying the same kind of thing over and over for a while. However, it definitely kind of picks itself up again. It definitely changes itself up. It definitely kind of gets into new locations and keeps the story moving quite fast paced. I like a lot of the dialogue in the film. There's a really cool dialogue saying like, "Who the fuck are you fuckers? Hey, that's my line," kind of thing. That's really funny. I think it's a really great little kind of crime thriller, bottle movie essentially within one location, more or less, for the good portion of it. And I think the ending is very appropriate to the outcome of what the film is going to go for. My aim now is to try and do these films in release order in terms of the year they came out. Next up is going to be The Threat, which is recently released by Arrow. So I'm looking forward to checking out that one to see what that's going to be like. And then we'll continue going on from that point and to see which ones I have access to, which ones I don't, and we'll go from there. So what are your thoughts and opinions on Wolf's Pig and Men? What are your thoughts and opinions on Kinji Fukasaku's early portion of his career? Is there any recommendations or any really good ones you have to see, have to check out? Please comment down below. So in time, guys, Amphlett Reviews, starting out.